All right, today we're going to dig into the very heart of what makes our favorite digital products feel so right. We're talking about design system foundations, the essential blueprint that's behind every single great user experience. So let's get into it.
You ever just use an app and everything just clicks? It feels effortless, it's intuitive, it's easy. So what's the secret sauce? I promise you, it's not magic. It's actually a really deliberate, almost invisible architecture that's working hard behind the scenes.
Well, the answer is a solid design blueprint. And in the world of design systems, we call these the foundations. The best way to think of them is as the actual architectural plans for a digital product. They're the core building blocks used to create every single screen, button, and interaction you see and touch.
To build anything that lasts, you need that blueprint, right? Every strong structure, whether we're talking about a skyscraper or a piece of software, starts with a super detailed plan that defines exactly how all the pieces are going to fit and work together. So, what are these foundations, really? Well, they're the whole collection of visual styles. Think colors and typography, the functional components like your buttons and menus, and all the established patterns that solve common user problems. These are the big, fundamental decisions that guarantee consistency across an entire product.
Okay, let's start with the structure itself. This is kind of like laying the concrete foundation and putting up the steel frame of our digital house. We're talking about the grids, the layouts, and the spacing that provide this underlying rhythm and order to everything you see on the screen. And when we talk about structure and modern digital design, there is one number that pops up constantly: 8. I know, it might seem a little random, but trust me, it's the key to visual harmony. So, why 8? What's so special about this number? It's the whole basis of the 8-point grid system. With this approach, every single element's size and the space around it is a multiple of 8 pixels. And the reason for 8 is that it scales beautifully across pretty much all modern screen resolutions. It's this unseen scaffolding that creates a really clean, harmonious visual rhythm, and it totally eliminates guesswork, making sure everything aligns perfectly, no matter what device you're on. Now, the 8-point grid doesn't work in a vacuum, right? It plays nice with other key concepts. You've got breakpoints. Those are the specific screen sizes where a layout literally changes, like when a website rearranges itself when you go from a desktop to your phone. Then you have responsive layouts, which let the design just flow and adapt to any screen size in between. And it's all held together by that spacing system, using those multiples of 8 to create a really clear visual hierarchy. All right, our digital house has its frame. Now it's time to give it some personality. This is where we start painting the walls and choosing the furniture. We're moving from the structure to the visual identity, and that's mostly defined by 2 things: color and typography. To keep things from becoming a total color chaos, a lot of designers use what's called the 60-30-10 rule. It's super simple. As you can see, 60% of the design is a neutral color that kind of gives you a base to work with. 30% is your primary brand color, and then a really important 10% is an accent color used for things like buttons and highlights. It's a simple formula that creates balance and tells the user's eye exactly where to look. And then there's typography. You know, a good system doesn't just pick a cool font and call it a day. It defines a type scale. This is basically a set collection of font sizes and weights that are all tied to specific jobs. You can see right here how a large, bold display style is for big headlines, while a smaller, regular body style is for your paragraphs. This scale makes everything easy to read and creates a clear hierarchy of information. So here's something to try. Take a look at your own team's work. Do you see like 5 different shades of blue being used for buttons? Are there dozens of slightly different font sizes just kind of floating around? Just doing an audit of these things and simplifying them is one of the very first steps to building a really solid system. So our house has walls, it's got color, it has a defined character, but how do we actually live in it? Well, we need the functional details, the light switches, the door handles. In design, these are the interactive elements, and we define them with things like elevation and iconography. Elevation is what gives elements that sense of depth and importance. Just look at this comparison. Adding a little shadow makes the element on the right feel like it's floating just a bit closer to you. It goes from being flat and static to something that signals, hey, I'm interactive. It's practically screaming, you can click me. Next up, icons. The best way to think of them is as a visual language. Their number one job is to be understood in an instant. You can definitely get creative and stylistic, but if you abstract an icon too much, you really risk losing its meaning. A beautiful icon that nobody understands is, well, a failure. And think about this from a really practical side. Let's say you needed an icon that means hide. what would you actually type into your icon library to find it? Hide? Hidden? Invisible? Maybe don't show or just I? A good icon system thinks about all of these possibilities so that designers can actually find the right icon and use it correctly.
Okay, now let's talk about something that isn't just another building block. It's more like the universal building code for our entire structure. It's the set of rules that make sure our creation is safe, usable, and welcoming for absolutely everyone. And that is accessibility.
Accessibility is really all about inclusive design, and it's so important to remember that disabilities aren't always permanent. Someone could have a temporary disability, like a broken arm, or even just a situational one, like trying to see their phone screen in bright sunlight. When you design for accessibility, you end up benefiting everyone.
One of the most basic, fundamental checks for accessibility is color contrast. On the left, that text is really tough to read against the background. On the right, the high contrast passes the AA standard from the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG. That simple difference makes the design usable for a much wider range of people.
This slide gets at a core principle of accessible design. You just can't rely on color by itself to communicate really important information. For instance, if an error message is only shown in red, a colorblind user might completely miss it. That's why it's so crucial to pair color with something else, like an icon or text, to make sure the meaning is crystal clear.
So, we have all these individual blocks: colors, fonts, grids, icons. How do we actually assemble them into something bigger, like a real building? Well, that's where patterns come in. A pattern is just a reusable solution to a common design problem. And you find them by auditing your product, identifying the best solutions you already have, and then documenting them so everyone can build consistently.
And when you put all of this together, the result is it's profound. These foundations are what make a product feel like a coherent, thoughtfully designed home where everything has its place and purpose. It's the difference between that and, well, a chaotic, frustrating mess of mismatched parts.
And this right here, this is the key takeaway. A design system is not just a library of parts or a list of rules. It's about the relationships between those rules. It's how your 8-point grid informs your type scale, or how your color choices affect your accessibility. That's the true nature of a system. It is all connected. So, I'll leave you with this question. Now that you can see the blueprint, what foundations are you going to start to notice in the apps you use every day? Pay attention to the spacing, the colors, the fonts. You might be really surprised at the hidden architecture you can suddenly see all around you. Thanks for joining me.